33-story hotel and condo project.
I'd probably be
Okay,
like
like
that.
stop, tap.
This is a plan by the community for the community.
This one here, showing me.
No problem, Ken. Thanks for having me.
It's Kent Mulgat for Kelowna Now. And joining us is Andrew Scheer, leader of the Federal Conservative Party. Thanks for coming into Kelowna Now.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
So you're such a young guy, 38 years old, elected at 32. You've already been Speaker of the House.
Elected Speaker of the House of Commons at 32, first elected at 25 in Regina.
Thanks for that correction. So this youth, is that an asset or a liability?
I think so. Yeah. You know, I think with old man Justin Trudeau in office, I think people are looking for. No, you know, I am the youngest of the three party leaders, and by and large, I believe it's an asset. I think it's great to see that. You know, youth being invigorated in our parliament. It's great to have a mix of experience and wisdom, and I hopefully what I offer people is both, you know, youth and a little bit of experience and that wisdom that comes along with being Speaker of the House of Commons and an MP since the age of 25.
So Justin Trudeau is pretty popular, and Canadians have a tendency to give a new government a couple of goes at it. So sort of makes you a bit of an underdog, but that doesn't seem to stop you. You've been an underdog a few times.
I have. I've kind of been an underdog my whole life in politics. In 2004, when I ran in Saskatchewan, I was up against the longest-serving New Democratic member,
Lauren Nystrom.
Yeah, NDP member of Parliament since 1968. And everyone told me, you know, the Conservatives couldn't win that seat. It had been NDP for you know, over 30 years at that point. Worked hard, built a great team, and went out and talked to as many people as I could, and won the seat for the Conservative Party for the first time in literally over 30 years. When I ran for Speaker, a lot of people said the same thing. Said, you know, you're too young. You're 32 years old. It's usually reserved for people on their way out of the House of Commons. And I said, you know what? I'm going to offer myself to the House of Commons. I'd been Deputy Speaker. I'm going to let the House make that decision. And I worked hard to earn the trust of my colleagues, and I got elected Speaker at the age of 32. In the leadership race, again, a lot of people said, you know, you shouldn't run now. You should wait your turn, or you know, spend some, you know, wait a couple election cycles before. And I said, you know, I'm just going to do what I've always done: work hard and, you know, make a pitch to Canadians and see if it resonates. And it did. So here I am. So I don't worry when people say it's going to be tough in 2019. It's always tough. It's tough for every party. A lot of things are different. I don't know that voters will maybe stick to the same patterns that have existed in the past. Remember, Justin Trudeau was leader of the third party. The first time in Canadian history that the leader of the third party went right into the Prime Minister's chair. So I think some of the old molds are ready to be broken, and I'm hoping that Canadians give me that opportunity.
Did this Speaker of the House position teach you anything that you carry forward?
Absolutely. It really helped me on a personal level appreciate my adversaries and respect them. And what I mean by that is, often in the House of Commons, you can kind of get frustrated about the arguments and, you know, someone being on one side of the issue or the other. And when I was Speaker, I avoided all the partisanship and had to look at everything through the lens of the rules of the House of Commons.
Right.
And I socialized a lot more with members of other parties. And what I saw was, be they Liberal or NDP, they got on that plane the same as I did and said goodbye to their friends and families and spent 4 or 5 days living in a hotel fighting for what they believed in. Now, I happen to believe that what they believe in is wrong, but I respect the sacrifice that they have for their values, for their ideas, and the service that they provide to their community.
Is this the tip of the hat that we might see a relatively congenial election where people are maybe strongly disagreeing but doing it respectfully?
I hope so. For my part, that's been my commitment. I believe that we have better policies. I believe that the principles of free market economics, of free people making free decisions, of smaller governments and a more dynamic society, I believe that is the solution. Now, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the failures of the policies of the Liberals and NDP. But I really do think that Canadians want a respectful debate. It won't be boring. It'll be vigorous. It'll be exciting. But for my part, I've made the commitment that I'm going to, as much as possible throughout the next election, keep it to those issues.
I do find when you see the machinations of government going on, the opposition is against almost everything, to the point where sometimes their opposition, well, we should be listening, is ignored because it's just written off as, well, that's their role. They have to say everything is terrible. So agreeing with something from time to time is I think, a good antidote to that, to say, now here's something they're doing we actually agree with. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, there may be some things that we agree with in the sense of that we agree that the government should be doing something, but we will often point out either it took them a while to get there,
Right.
or that they're not prioritizing enough. So take, for example, in the recent budget, the Liberals allocated some new dollars to the opioid crisis. We said that's a great thing. We should be doing more of that. But we believe that there should be a greater emphasis on rehabilitation, on getting people off of drugs, more addictions counseling, and the dollar amounts that we thought, when you look at what the government's spending money on,
Right.
didn't really make it high on the priority
You hit
list.
on something. We have quite a problem in Kelowna in particular with opioids and it just how to help people who are homeless and drug addicted and have mental issues, and it all dovetails together. And are you saying that a government under your leadership would provide additional funding to programs to help with that?
We would absolutely prioritize these types of services, because we really do, as you mentioned, we look at this through a very compassionate lens. And what I get frustrated with is there does seem to be a sense with many in the Liberals and the NDP that it's okay to allow people to stay hooked on these drugs forever, as long as they've got supervised injection sites and a clean supply. Then that's fine. That's all we have to do. We can kind of absolve ourselves from taking any further action. I want to go beyond that. I don't think that's acceptable as a society to just have a government that says that's the only piece that we're going to look at. We need to get beyond that and say, how are we going to help people to get off of that, to not be addicted, to get the help they need so that they can close that chapter in their lives,
Right.
and get better.
I think a lot of the argument tends to be house them first and then we can deal with some of their problems. You wouldn't oppose that, would you? You wouldn't keep a roof over, from being over someone's head before they got off their drugs?
There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, as you rightly mentioned. Housing is a big part of it. I had the opportunity to take a walking tour of the Lower East Side in Vancouver.
That's something,
with the Vancouver Police Detachment that's out there, and they will tell you about the challenges that people have when they get into a safe space, when they're kind of a stable housing. If it's only short term, they're back on the streets, and they're right back exposed to the same temptations they had and involved with the same people that are dragging them back down into that cycle of addictions. It's a multifaceted problem, so I'm not suggesting that anybody's got a
Right.
magic wand that can solve it all tomorrow, but we will be speaking a
Right.
lot about this from a compassionate lens, about helping the individual get better. It's not enough to just have them maintained at the level that they're at. We need them to get better, get healthy.
So a lot could happen between now and election time, but what should we be watching for sort of key issues?
Well, obviously, with Conservatives, we have been talking a lot about balanced budgets and lowering taxes. We're going to be talking more about the why. We're very good at the what. We always, all the speeches you'll hear from Conservative politicians, balanced budgets, low taxes. But what we really need to focus on is explaining to Canadians how that is better for them. Right now, we're seeing $18 billion deficits. For the first time in Canadian history, the total debt of our country has reached $1 trillion. Those are big, big, big dollar amounts that sometimes it's hard even for me to wrap my head around. What does that look like? What does that mean to the individual Canadian? When you break that down into the amount of money that is being spent just on interest payments to banks and bondholders
Right.
for that debt, now we can break it down and, hey, out of your tax bill, $7,000, $8,000, maybe $12,000 is going just to pay.
So your
interest.
focus is on fiscal conservatism. There's this social conservative element as well, and I guess you embrace those members of your party as well. But right now, most people who are observing conservatism in general are looking south of what's going on in the States, where conservatives do seem to be a little lost. Do you have to differentiate yourselves from what's going on south of the border?
Well, I think every politician, every leader of a party has to differentiate themselves from others around the world. You have to. I want to define what the conservative movement in Canada looks like under my leadership, and not that I do it in a lens of what others are doing in other countries, but what would I do, and how do I make that pitch? I think Conservatives always do better when we have a positive message, when we focus on the benefits of our policies, and when we try to bring people together and unite Canadians. When you look at the politicians around the world who have had that kind of aspirational vision for their country in a positive light, Ronald Reagan in the U.S., Brad Wall in Saskatchewan, we can win. We can win with that type of a message, and that's kind of what I want. That's my focus. So to talk about the issues like a deficit and say, look, I don't support a balanced budget just because I like black ink on the ledger. I support a balanced budget because I don't think it's right that I borrow money from my kids. And I want my kids to have a better opportunity than I had, because I had a better opportunity than my parents had, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I don't want to reach into their future, borrow money like Justin Trudeau is and spend it today. That's why I'm fighting for balanced budgets.
So hard to get stuff done without spending money, though. So it's a challenge.
Well, I disagree. There's a lot the government can do that can leverage the power of the private sector, leverage volunteer groups, leverage other levels of government. By lowering taxes and getting rid of excessive red tape, you can unleash so much economic activity that then produces the revenue that government can use to help the most vulnerable and fill in the cracks for people. That's what we're missing with the Trudeau Liberals. They're squeezing out the productive bits of our economy to pay for a huge expansion in the government. And that's not right. It's not fair to my kids. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Right. I think we're all seeing that they are using a bit of red ink right now. So we'll be hearing about that, I guess, in 2019 for sure.
Yeah.
Andrew Scheer, leader of the Conservative Party. Sorry to cut you off.
Nope.
I know you got other places to go.
We're trying to fit a lot of events into my tour here, so thanks for the opportunity, and I'd love to come back.
Terrific. Andrew Scheer, and you're watching Kelowna Now.